infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
So on this edition of Into the Fray, I have on with me Heather, and she is in the Dallas, Texas area. And Heather, you got in touch with me on Instagram, and you said it was the combination of watching both of mine and Seth and the Small Town Monsters documentaries On the Trail, UFOs, Dark Sky, and our recent release Night Visitors that prompted you to get in touch. And you've had a few significant experiences. I already know quite a lot about them via what you sent me on Instagram. And you're even having some currently, which we will get to. But, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I would probably like to go in succession of how things happen, if that's okay with you. And because I think it might be important, you know, for the whole story and the setup. And really the reason that you're even probably willing to do this is because of the fact that you would like to find people that have had similar experiences. And I know that they are out there just from what you've sent me so far. Plus, not only that, but narrowing it down to the areas that these experiences happened in. And they're not all in the same place, which makes it even more interesting, right?
Yeah,
so
all over.
Yes, very, very much so, which is not always the case with these, I don't think. But then again, people don't always move around, but it wasn't in places that you always lived in. So let's start there, right? So we're going to go back to June, right? Summer of 1997. Did you want to start there?
So in June of 1997, I was still taking some college classes. I had gotten one of those college credit cards and thought, I've never been out of the country. I'm going to go. And so I booked a trip to Jamaica, and I was too afraid to go by myself. And so I asked a guy friend of mine who was in the military to come with me. So we went. It was one of those 4-day, 3-night quick trips. It wasn't a very fancy place. It was in a place called Runway Bay. I think the resort is a totally different name now. But it's like in between, it's almost to Ocho Rios. So it's like a couple hours from Montego Bay. And so we got out there. It was late on the first day. It was like a Thursday. As soon as we got there, we met this British couple that was our age, and we thought they were really cool. So we started kind of to pal around with them. So the next night, we did our thing on the resort, hung out with our new friends, and we had found this little cove on our private beach that was like right where the property line ended. There was some like rocky formations on the beach. We thought, well, let's just sit here. It'll be quiet here. No one's going to yell at us. So we were sitting there, and it was after 10, before 11 o'clock for sure. It was a clear night. We were facing north. There was a pretty bright moon, no clouds in the sky, and something drew our attention to this very bright light coming off the horizon. And at first we were like, oh, wow, what's that? And it just kind of, we kept talking because it didn't really seem like anything until it started getting somewhat close. And we could tell it was really low. It was maybe 200 feet at most, which drew the attention to my friend who's in the military, who's flying helicopters. So I was like, that is really strange. And as it got closer to us, we noticed that there's no green flashing light. There's no flashing lights. It is a black triangle, perfect black triangle that's probably bigger than like an F-18 fighter jet. And in each corner underneath, there was a white, like recessed light with a large red light in the center. And as it came up over us, it was low enough that I don't know if it was heat or if there was a texture on the metal, but there was a waviness to what we're seeing underneath the vehicle. And it made no noise whatsoever. Like, we all commented on that the low tide lapping up on the beach was louder than anything that this thing. So we all jumped up. We're all pointing. I'm sure they're swearing. And we're like, oh, my God, what is that? So we turned because it came us over. And in the background behind our resort, there was like the hills, probably the foothills for the Blue Mountains. And it flew behind us. And I think we all thought that it was just going to fly away. So we didn't even really look at it that long. And we continued talking like, oh, that's so weird. What was that? And we turned back around, and I swear it was me that said, oh, my God, I'm going to die if that's another one. And from the same position, from the same point on the horizon, here comes another light up over the ocean. Super bright. Same thing, same path. It came right over us, same height. It was a black, matte colored triangle, white cornered lights, red one in the center. It went right over us. And when we turned around to see where it was going, we realized the first one was still in the position that probably when we turned around to look back at the water, it was sitting, hovering in front of the hills right there. And the second one pulled up within, it didn't seem like very far. I mean, from your vision that far away, it's like inches. So, I mean, it couldn't have been that far away. Because I remember taking my fingers like a peace sign and putting my middle finger on the first one and my second finger, my index finger, on the second one. And it was like, would have been at 1 and 2 o'clock. I mean, they were that close. And they just sat there hovering. Every once in a while, you'd see it kind of twist around. And we watched it for like 15 or 20 minutes, all freaking out. The British people were talking about how the X-Files had just started in the UK. There were a lot of comments about Agent Mulder running across the beach and how we were all going to die. But then as we sat there, it was just, I think we were all mystified by what's happening. Because again, there's no noise at all. So within the 15 or 20 minutes, I don't even remember now, just all of a sudden, like as I could snap my fingers that quick, one went to the right, one went to the left, poof, gone. And we never saw it again. That was it. We all thought it was so strange. The next day, we didn't see anything. Of course, we talked about it with these people the whole night, the whole next day, up until we left. And I got back to the States. We talked to some of my guy friends, military buddies, about what we saw, who fly jets and fly helicopters. They all thought it was really strange and told us about how planes have to have the green flashing light and the white flashing light. So it's internationally this happens. So people know where the planes are in the sky, and no one could answer what had happened or what we had seen. And about 3 weeks later, I got a postcard from the British couple in Jamaica, because they were staying for like 2 or 3 weeks. And it was just a really nice, hey, it was great to meet you guys. We never saw anything else weird in the sky. That was so crazy. You know, basically take care. And I mean, that was 1997. This is before computers and email and text. So I remember their names, but I couldn't tell you where they live or who, like where they are now. So anyways, we get back to the United States. Everything seems like normal. Got this cool story. Have to always tell people, no, we weren't high. Yes, we were in Jamaica, but we weren't smoking pot. This totally happened when we were completely stone sober. We kind of split. I didn't really see my friend much after that. He was kind of moving around with the military, so he was going to be moving away. And so we kind of lost contact over that summer. And in the meantime, I started seeing this guy. He was a musician. He lived in a very small town in the middle of Amish country. It's called Worcester, Ohio. It was like an hour away from my house. So if I went to see him, I usually had to stay at his house, so I didn't have to drive through Amish country through these back roads at night. So there was one night in September, I think it was a Thursday, where I went out to see this guy. We were kind of dating. I'm staying at his house because he lives so far away. And it's kind of an uneventful night, honestly. Like, I just went there to hang out with him and then kind of stay over and just spend some time with him. So nothing really happened that night. Again, completely sober. We went to bed, no big deal. He was kind of a musician, delivered pizzas, didn't have a lot of money. It was total bachelor pad. And in his bedroom, there was just like a box spring and a mattress laying on the floor just to set up how the room looked. There was one window towards the foot of the bed. He lived on the second floor, this old house. There's a lot of old farmhouses and things down in that area. So totally normal 20-something guy's apartment. We go to bed. I wake up in the middle of the night and I remember the exact dream I was having, which was really weird because I don't usually remember things so vividly. And I've never had this dream before or since that I can remember. I was dressed in Victorian clothing in an open carriage in what I would consider to be London, because I've been there now and it looks very similar to what I've seen in James Park. I'm sitting in a carriage and there's a driver and I see a man approaching me on a horse dressed in a top hat, tails. He tips his hat at me and he says something. And right at that moment, I woke up. I wasn't on my side because I always had to lay on my left side on this bed. It was just crappy. It kind of made you roll in the center. Even if you were on your back, it would have made me kind of roll to my right. So I always had to lay where I was on my left side to keep from rolling in this crevice. I was now on my back, which was odd. There was this piercing white, I call it like a white blue light, but it was white. It was the brightest light, the most sterile light I've ever seen in my entire life. Around the outer edges of the room, it looked blue, but in the center of the room, it's completely lit up, brighter than I would even say a police officer's lights are. I was totally paralyzed, which was really, really strange to me because I've never had this experience. I've never had any type of health issues up until this point. And I realized that as I tried to move and or scream, I couldn't open my mouth. Nothing was coming out. And I'm completely mummified in this spot on this bed. And it felt like something was trying to force to keep my eyes. And I went into like fight or flight and I obviously couldn't run. So I am like trying to figure out how I can get out of this. Something bad is really going to happen to me if I don't. And I tried to look around the room to see what was going on. I noticed that there were two, what I would call gray aliens at the foot of the bed. They seemed to be smaller because, again, this is a box spring on a mattress sitting on the floor. And I saw the one at my feet raise his, I guess would be his, I'm calling him a he, I don't know, his left hand. And I saw 3 long, skinny fingers. And again, I can't move my head. All I can do is move my eyes. And I'm having this force that I can't control try to close my eyes. And I'm fighting to keep them open as much as I can. And at times it was only split. But I could see to my right, the guy is laying there on his side, facing the other direction on his right. And the room is so lit up. The bedroom door is open. I can see the blackness of the hallway outside of his bedroom. And I can see the of a taller gray alien who was probably to the doorknob type of level to the door that was right there. And his very complete, very vivid shadow projected on the wall in front of him. And I saw his head turn to the left. I saw it turn to the right. And then he moved to the right out of my view. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh my God, what is happening to me? I don't know what to do. It felt like this went on for hours. I have thought about this a lot. It probably wasn't that long. Now I think about it more recently, this probably was not very long, but it seemed like it went on for hours. My heart is beating so loudly that all I can hear is my heartbeat. And I can feel that there's this like pulsing, humming noise that's filling the room. I didn't hear any talking at this point. I only saw motion. I saw these beings. All I kept thinking in my head is, I have to move. I have to move something. And at one point, I felt like I was getting more distracted by what I was seeing visually than trying to focus on moving some point of my body. So there toward the end of this whole nightmare, I focused on my right hand that was laying beside me. And it was like my brain is airplaying the vision of my right hand. And all I could focus on was my pinky. And I was like, I have to do anything in my power to move my pinky. And it was like I willed it. I tried to use the force. I tried to do anything that I could to move my pinky. And finally, I moved it. I mean, and it was like a micrometer. I mean, it was the smallest amount that someone could do, like a millimeter of movement on my pinky. And as soon as I did that, bam, lights off. My eyes are wide open and the beings aren't there anymore. And all I could do was roll back onto my left side in the fetal position, and I started sobbing. And I was kind of crying the entire time because I remember being like completely soaked in sweat, and I had hot tears running down my face through this whole event. And then all I could do was like, I knew it was gone. I wasn't sure if it was really over, but I was too afraid to say anything to him because I thought he was going to think I was crazy. And here's this new girl I'm dating, and she almost got abducted by aliens in my bedroom. It just seemed like this is a too far out kind of story to tell some guy I kind of like that I don't know what just happened in his bedroom. So I laid there. It was totally pitch black in the room. The hallway was totally pitch black. There was no light coming through the window. There was no street light outside the window. And I laid there until I saw dawn break. And in Ohio, if you're from that area, you know, especially in the fall, it comes Labor Day and we have dew on the ground and kind of gray skies and misty mornings. And it was one of those gray sky mornings that I usually hated. But that morning, it just seemed like this comfort. And so finally, I'm still crying and sobbing. I finally mustered the strength to get up. I left his apartment. The doors were locked, which I thought was really strange. And I went out into the front yard. Luckily, across to the right of the house, there was just this big empty parking lot where there used to be some kind of factory or something. But there were old farmhouse type houses across the street. So if someone would have been up at probably 6 a.m., they would have seen me probably in a t-shirt and boxer shorts looking crazy and disheveled out in the front lawn. And I kind of peeked around the corner where I knew the window and the light had come from. There was nothing on the ground. I was too scared to go over there and really inspect it. So I just sat in the grass and sobbed for what seemed like eternity. And I just let the mist kind of come down on me, and I didn't know what to do. So I finally gathered myself and I went back in and I laid down on the bed again, and he was still asleep. And then finally he gets up. We kind of have like a weird morning. I'm a little weird, but I was like, I have to go. And we'll figure out how to see each other. I just kind of felt like I needed to leave, but I didn't want to just ghost on him and get out of there and not say anything. So I waited around. Again, I'm too afraid to say anything because I thought this guy's going to think I'm crazy. And I remember going through his living room, and there was a chair sitting like in the corner of the living room close to the front door. And it was the book Communion sitting there, which I had never heard of. Didn't know what this is. All I saw was what looked like a gray alien face. It looked different to what I saw, but there is a gray alien face on this book cover, and it's peering at me. And I remember thinking, that's really weird. And so I finally said, has anyone ever said to you that like weird things happen in this house? And he said, yeah. And I am like, have you read this book? Because I don't know this book. And he said, oh yeah, it's a really great book. You should read that. And I'm like, okay. And I asked him again, like, have you ever had any type of like really weird stuff? And I'm kind of gesturing toward the book, trying to see if he's going to maybe give me, I don't know, some kind of in to say, yeah, I've had this happen, or I know something's happened here before. And he said, well, you wouldn't be the first person to tell me something weird has happened here, which I remember this from September of 1997. So fast forward, I end up moving to Texas in 98 with this guy. Everything's, normal 20-something-year-old life. Nothing really happens. I think about it constantly. I remember in about 2002, because again, there wasn't any internet. I didn't know anyone that had the internet in 1997 or even 1998. It was expensive. It wasn't trustworthy. There weren't a lot of websites. So I never had a way to really research anything that I had seen. So I remember I was sitting in my apartment in Arlington, Texas, watching like the History Channel one night on cable, because I finally have like the real job and can afford cable. We probably had a computer, but again, there's not a lot of websites, even back in 2002, I guess. They were doing a show about black triangle UFO. And I mean, I jumped out of the chair and was screaming at the TV because the pictures, the drawings, the photographs, everything that the people explained, the visuals that they had, all was the same things I saw in Jamaica to a T. And I thought that was so crazy because it took all those years for me to even know that what we saw was real, really, and that other people had experienced the same things So it always kind of sat with me. And like I said, I had trouble with this whole, I don't know, maybe abduction, maybe not an abduction. I don't know. That's why I have so many questions and why I contacted you about what happened in September of that year. But I tried to force it away. I tried to make it go away. I tried to excuse every way. Like maybe I imagined this. Maybe it was sleep paralysis. I don't know. So fast forward into more recent years, I divorced that guy. I was single for a while. I met my new husband. He's great. So, and I remember the exact day. It was October 23rd, 2016. It was a Sunday. It was the last day at the Texas State Fair, which is a huge internationally known state fair. And we had been planting tulip bulbs all day in our front flower beds. And we have a really nice seating area in the backyard. We were exhausted. It's like 6:00. It was a nice evening. They had talked about maybe storms moving in. I had plugged my phone inside because I think we had been listening to music in the front yard all day. And I went to go sit down on the couch outside. And my husband is pointed at our next door neighbor's house. And they have this giant pecan tree that's like 3 stories or more tall. And he said, look at that weird drone. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I jump up and I'm kind of trying to like move around and peek around the tree and I'm not seeing it. And then all of a sudden I saw it. It was not a drone. First of all, there were no propellers. I saw no way for this thing to be sitting where it was, basically hovering. It was like a dark gray, almost black color. It was horizontal. It had a V in the front that I remember saying over and over and over again, oh my God, it looks like a mini stealth fighter. And I'm trying to, in my head, work out what I'm looking at and what the shape is, because the shape was so odd. It's not what you typically expect to see, I guess, in something like this. It was definitely different than the triangles that I saw in Jamaica. And I watched it hover over the neighbor's backyard for probably 10 seconds. It started slowly moving toward our yard. It came right over top of us and it went to our roof and it was just hovering. Again, no noise, no sound, nothing. It turned to expose the back, and the back was concave. It was in a curve. It went from edge to edge from the sides of this thing, and a light came on, a red light came on, and it was like the back curved part was segmented, and it lit up red in each of those segmented pieces to where it made this fanning effect, almost like Hit from Knight Rider. And it was moving back and forth, and it would go back to the beginning. It would start to light up red. It would go solid red, and then it'd come back, and then it just sat there and did it for 10 seconds. And I'm like, is it recording us? This is freaking me out. It started to go over our rooftop. I mean, this thing had to be 75 feet off the ground, if that. I mean, it barely looked like it was clearing our house, and our house is a 2-story house. So it probably was 50 or 75 feet. I don't know, but I was starting to lose sight of it. So I ran down our side yard, which is not very long, to get to the front yard to see. I thought I'm going to see it in the front yard. I'm going to see it longer. I'm going to be able to make mental notes. I'm going to be able to see this thing. So I get to the front yard and I look up and there's nothing there. And I'm scanning, I'm looking. I moved toward the street to see if like maybe it went back in the backyard and it's over the peak. I can't see where it is. And then I noticed that it was about a half a mile down the road, in between the houses and the trees, next to this intersection we live at. And I could see it way down there. And I was just flabbergasted because I don't know how this thing went from my backyard, and I'm booking it down my side yard to get to my front yard, and it is a half a mile down the road. And I sat here for 20 minutes and I watched it, and I tried not to blink because I wanted to not lose it in the sky. And it went north, almost directly north, and it became this small little dot that I could barely see, but there was some storm clouds north of us in the distance that I was able to kind of keep focus on it. And then I saw it kind of bounce and bam, straight up gone. And I didn't know what to do. So I called the non-emergency number. I wanted to see if anybody had called the cops in the area. I called news stations in the area. Everybody kind of acted like I was crazy, except for one of the news stations. Why don't you hold on for a second? I'm going to call the airport. So he made a call to Love Field and to DFW to see if there had been anything reported. Because, I mean, this is 6:30 on a beautiful Sunday in October. And I thought, I can't be the only person in this entire area that just witnessed this. So he came back and was basically like, nope, no one's seen anything, but that's a really weird story. And I was like, yeah, that you have no idea how we're stuck. So those are my weird, creepy, I don't know what happened. I'm still seeking answers, and why I reached out to y'all and to you. And I tried to get fast too to see if anybody could help me figure out what's going on with me.
So I have a lot of questions and just things to bring up, which I found extremely interesting between what I already read and what you've mentioned so far. Okay, so let's go back to the very first one in Jamaica. Did you have any feeling about that at all? Did that scare you, that very first event?
It scared me, but it was, I think, more exciting because it was, always kind of a topic. You grow up with sci-fi, Star Wars is huge. I'm a 70s kid. And it's always the thing that, like, if I could try to find a movie or show, I would watch it to try to learn more about the subject because I didn't really know. And so at first it was really super exciting, but it was also kind of scary at the same time. But since they went away within 30 minutes, this whole event's over, it didn't really scare me per se. I think I was more like in awe over what I saw.
And something that you mentioned, not only about the Jamaica sighting, but the one that you just relayed in October 2016 in Texas, is the fact that, once you had access to information online, you couldn't really find a craft, even the ones that are known, like the TR-3B, the fact that you couldn't quite find something that matched either one of those sightings.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the things I saw in Jamaica, I know I've seen enough shows or documentaries now because I try to watch everything. looking for some kind of clue of something I've seen in my life. And everything that I've seen that people have talked about are the government ones that start with a T. Those look man-made. Those look to me like something the United States military would make. This to me did not seem like something that we had made. And I don't know if we had stealth. I can't remember back that far what our technology was here. But this is something that would have flown over international waters, probably over Cuba, because Cuba's just directly north of where I was in Jamaica. And I find it kind of a stretch to think like, oh yeah, the U.S. military is just kind of out flying around all over. I mean, I'm sure we do that to get, intel, but it just seemed really odd. And the lights and all the pictures and I guess illustrations I've seen of what people say are made by the U.S., it just looks like something that we would make. It looks something manufactured. This looked like it's similar, but different. Like the lights are different. These were recessed. The positioning of the lights are basically the same. The shape's basically the same. The color's probably the same. And maybe it was something early of ours that we were testing. I don't know. But I could never find any information. I have scoured looking for what I would consider now to be a shield-shaped UFO or even a drone. If it was a drone, that's fine. I would like to find it if I could that I saw in 2016. I have yet to this day to be able to find anything that I saw. And I mean, it is, 50, 75 feet off the ground. The thing I saw in 2016 looked to be 2 or 3 feet wide. So if it's on the ground, it's going to be much larger.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this was not a small vehicle.
And were they both, because I remember in the very first one, something striking was the fact that you remember the fact that the waves crashing on the beach were blaringly loud because you were assuming there would be some noise coming from the crafts, but there was nothing.
There was nothing. It was completely silent to the point, literally lapping calm, low tide waves lapping up on the beach was definitely louder than, they made no noise. I didn't hear humming. I didn't hear anything at all. None of us did. That was something that really stood out to us. And I know we spoke about it that evening into the next day, because when you see something that big and it's that low, you're expecting, even if there's a delay in the sound, you're going to hear the sound. There was nothing. And as we watched them in the distance, there was nothing. There was never any noise that came. And when they shot like a cannon to our left and right, there was no noise at all. It was just gone. We saw it just gone.
And and
I totally forgot about the weird thing that happened in Ohio, that at the end of my experience, I heard a voice in my head that I know now is telepathic. I can't believe I totally forgot to tell you this part. At the end, when I rolled over onto my left side, and this has bothered me since the day it happened, and I have tried to figure out how I could tell this story and explain this. And forever, I kept thinking, I only heard it in my left ear. It was not in my left ear. It was telepathic. It was in my head. I heard 3 voices in the highest octave a voice can make, some kind of speech of a language I have never heard before. And at the same moment, I heard the translation with 3 voices, still high-pitched octave voices, say, "We will be back for you." And that was one of the moments that that has stuck with me since that night in 1997. That has haunted me, because I don't know if I'm marked. I don't know if this is why I saw something else in 2016. I don't think I'm chipped. I don't think I went anywhere. I didn't get cold visions of some galaxy far away that these people are from. I literally only had that message that said, "We will be back for you."
Yeah, and that was something that you said really stuck out for you in Night Visitors for On the Trail UFOs was because of the fact that Watson, and I'm sure you caught it, but That was not a planned thing. Of course, the interviews were planned it was the same location, but these two people did not know each other. They had never met before. It was Watson on the first evening that we got there. And then the very next morning, we had Katie Grabowski from MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, right, for Colorado. And they both had the exact same experience that you just relayed back from 97, and it was the bright light, and they also heard a voice in their head, right?
Yeah.
And when we realized that, like, Katie, just real quick, like, because I started that thought and I didn't finish it, the fact that you can see Seth and I look at each other on camera, like when because we don't do these 2-3 takes of the same thing. That's live. What you're seeing is the very first take, and it's the very first time we're hearing all of their information. And that's the way we like to do it. That's the same way I like to do my show. And the second she said, there was a bright light that filled the room, and then I heard a voice speak to me. We look at each other like, holy crap. Like, and Watson had just said the same thing in just hours earlier. It was insane.
And when I originally messaged Seth, I messaged him because I like his documentaries. I think they're kind of cool. I think he's from a small town, maybe even close to where I grew up in Ohio. So I thought maybe he would know something that happened in Worcester around this time period. And when I saw I didn't even see night visitors the night that I messaged. I didn't even realize that was a thing. It didn't come up on Prime. I didn't find it until the next day. When I looked you up, night visitors came up, and I first of all, I was shocked because I thought I had watched everything I could find, because I try to find and watch everything. And I started watching it. And when you got to Watson, first of all, he is so haunted. And I can tell that, like, this is a very real experience, very real to me. I know this happened. I know his thing happened also. But when he said he woke up to the white light and he heard, "We came back for you," I had chills over my entire body. I mean, those almost exactly the same words. And as the segment went on, he even said at one point, the light leaves, and he heard them say, "We'll be back for you." And I thought, how in the world? I don't know this man. I just found you. I don't know really a lot, I guess, about this whole topic. And how could I have the same exact experience, not only just with the light, but that the words that were said were identical? And now it's like I've had this fear of the night since 1997 in some kind of weird way of like, are they coming back? Are they coming for me? I mean, what does that mean?
That was something that once you said that, I realized how poignant that was, not only for Watson and Katie at the same time, me and Seth looking at each other like, what in the world just happened? But I mean, for you probably to see that. And it is kind of interesting that the second you went to message Seth, the night visitors tended to pop up in your feed. It's like, oh, are they really watching that closely? Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I know. It's really weird how that happens, because I even screenshot the thing I sent to Seth. So I wanted you to see the timestamp that it was from the day before. Not that, I mean, I guess I could have lied and said, oh, I didn't see this until, no. I had not seen night visitors until the next evening. And maybe I shouldn't watch creepy things at nighttime, but when my dogs and my husband get to sleep, I have time sleeping, obviously, all these reasons why. And I watch different documentaries or different movies at night until I get tired enough to go to sleep. And so when I came across this and started watching it, I'm like, oh, this is going to be another great one. And then, yeah, Katie and Watson both had, I mean, basically the same story.
Yeah.
Just, insert name of city, insert, number of beings or whatever the circumstances. It's the exact same thing. And there's no way that me, them, anybody else that's had this experience can be making this up. I mean, there's no way. I don't have some like physiological, psychological aberration. I am college educated. I am not a crazy person. Like, I may do funny things and have purple hair, but I mean, I am a pretty solid mind person, and I really am into detail. So it just seemed to me that like there has to be something that a lot of people that seem that I've from watching these documentaries and hearing people's stories on these documentaries, the things I have read, that when it's these smaller gray aliens, because I'm assuming there's probably different species, there always seem to be like the number 3. And the people will say, I saw 3 beings in my room. Even your illustrations you use and some of the clips on night visitors, there are 3 gray aliens in these illustrations. And when you look up gray aliens, most of the illustrations that come up on Google, there are 3 gray aliens. Like, there just seems to be something specific that how could all these people not only hear the same words, see the same light, but see the same number of beings?
When you first mentioned, because I think you put in, and I actually still do it as well, even though Dark Sky is, I mean, I'm the host of the doc. I thought that you meant Dark Skies, the movie, because there's a lot of similarities, of course, because they're pulling from documented reports from folks of what's going on. But they had, I remember when, what's her name? Carrie Russell, is that her last name? Anyway, Carrie, she comes down and there's all these things stacked on her table, right? And I mean, so then we'll get into, this in here very shortly, but essentially poltergeist type of activity. You mentioned, I don't want to jump ahead too far, but they had alarm system problems, right? They had things moved around their house and things thrown, animals acting strangely. So even just that movie, and it's a movie, so, full disclosure there, but they're pulling from actual reports for a reason. What was I going to bring up? Oh, zipping back really quickly, because I don't want to forget this, to the Texas 2016 sighting. You mentioned that you thought it was recording you. Why did you say that?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just every tech we have when it's recording, there's a red light since the beginning of like the big shoulder VCR recorders, camcorders, that I don't know. When I saw that red light come on, my brain went to, oh my God, it's recording us. What is happening? I don't know why. Maybe it was just powering up. I thought about it a lot because I know that I saw this fanning. I don't even know what you would call it other than it made a fanning motion from left to right with a red light that was segmented to where it was solid and then back to the first position and then it'd go across and it'd become solid. And I probably saw it 6 or 7 times do that before I lost sight of it over the roof. So when it turned and that light came on, I thought, oh my God, I'm being recorded. I don't know why. And at first, if my husband's still like, oh, that's a weird drone, I thought someone's really creepy in the neighborhood if they're like going around recording people in their backyards. And when he first said, oh, look at that weird drone over the neighbor's house, I thought, oh, someone must have been at the fairgrounds down the road and they're just like driving along, following some drone. I never saw a car drive by. I didn't see one person for the 20 minutes I stood in my front yard, walk by, drive by. There was no one. I was the only one standing out here. So I don't know. The whole thing was just so weird. And then I got really creeped out because like I said, I don't know if it was recording or if there was some kind of power thing that was turning on for it to be able to be a mile down the road by the time I saw it again. I don't know.
So let's go down a little list here of some things that occur around you and that have happened to you. The first one is strange electrical occurrences. Let's talk about that a little bit.
I have all kinds of weird electrical things that happen. My husband jokes that I basically blow up the electronics all the time. I have flipped on light switches and had the bulb, and I knew it was going to do it before I hit the switch. Like I had a thought in my head, this is going to blow when I touch it. I have gone to flip on lights and didn't even flip the switch up, and the light in a bedroom and a ceiling fan came on, which made me start screaming because that's really weird when the light switch is in the down position. I have been talking to people about creepy stuff because I have told people about black triangles, but I'd never told anybody until a couple years ago. I think when COVID started, I told my friend Stacy about what happened in Jamaica. I hadn't told no one. Even my husband now didn't know details. He knew something creepy happened at my ex's house, but he didn't know details. It just seems to be that I have electronical issues. I have things turn on. My iPad is turned on. Electronics in the house have gone out. I mean, maybe that's why we were having headphone problems earlier. I don't know. There's some kind of weird charge in my body that seems to ebb and flow, that there's static, there's something that I blow things.
And had you ever had these kinds of things happen before these incidents started?
No, never.
And I have to play the devil's advocate because people will message me and holler at me if I don't ask this. And I'm not trying to make this sound so, I mean, it is fantastical anyway, of course.
Yeah,
but if I don't,
no. Listening to this, I would think I was crazy.
No, not at all. But I preface that because of what I'm going to ask, because some people are going to roll their eyes and other people are going to go, thank you for asking that. And you already did mention this. You just kind of glanced over it. But you say you don't think you were taken and you don't have any implants. But the fact that but the fact that these incidents these electrical occurrences and all this stuff hadn't happened before all of this, does it kind of make you wonder then if, you are in a Whitley Strieber communion type of a situation where you might have something inside of you?
Right. That it has crossed my mind. Trust me. I know my husband now, he has joked about my weird alien implant, like because I blow things or, electronics.
Oh, he does joke about that.
Yeah, he jokes. And it's so funny because I've shared stories with you about how he's totally a Libra. I'm totally a Gemini, and he balanced my Gemini crazy. But he is so even keeled about everything weird that happens around me that he's just kind of like, okay. And he just kind of watches, and he doesn't have a lot to say until he does. But he'll joke about stuff like that. And I think he's gotten used to it since 2008 when we met, that weird things kind of happen, whether it's paranormal or if it's some kind of like these stories I have happen to me. And he knows that, like, I'm not making it. And I've only, like, he didn't even know details. And my friend Stacy is the only one that I actually went into all the gory, horrifying, like I was about to cry when I told her, because that was the first time I'd ever spoken about it to anybody. I mean, not even to my ex-husband. And over the years with my ex-husband, there were times that he would have night terrors, which I don't want to talk about him a whole lot, but he would have these night terrors where he would start screaming and sit straight up out of the bed and say, "Don't let them take me." And it used to scare the hell out of me because, I mean, to wake up to someone sitting straight out of the bed screaming, "Don't let them take me." And over the years, his mother, who is a highly educated woman, very professional lady, him and her would get together every once in a while, and they would start to talk about these experiences that happened to them. And he didn't grow up at first in Ohio. He lived in Colorado, of all places. And then they moved back to her hometown when he was, a young child. But they kind of, talked like there was an occurrence where maybe they had been abducted. Because there was a really big memory that he had told his father when he was little that they took a plane ride. And his mother said to me, we didn't take a plane ride. And I know she was really into the subject because she would talk about things and then kind of pull back, but she would go into like Roswell theories and, being in Ohio, Dayton's not that far away. I went to Kent State. They went to Kent State. One of the theories was the Liquid Crystal Institute for the entire world is on the campus of the college I went to. And it was a theory I don't know if she had read or something she had come up with on her own, but that was a technology possibly from Roswell that was divided up when they were trying to back engineer whatever that they found, which I always thought was really strange. The world headquarters, Liquid Crystal, which is in everything we use, is on a college that you couldn't walk through the building like you could every other building on campus. And I'm assuming it's still there because it was before I left. So there was something going on there with them that I never got a lot of the details. And again, I never talked to them about what happened because you feel judged. You feel like they're going to pick apart your story, or you just made this up to get some type of attention or something. So I just would always say, yeah, I saw some weird stuff in that apartment. I had some weird things happen in that apartment. And then I remember shortly, last thing I'll say about him that was odd, but right before we split up, he had shaved his head, and one night we had friends over, and he said, "Oh, can you look behind my ear? I think I missed a spot." And I'm like, "Well, let me look." And when I pulled back his ear, it was his right ear, and along where the cartilage meets your skull, there was a surgical scar there that was probably about an inch long. I've had a lot of medical issues. I've had a lot of surgeries. This looked like an incision. And it freaked me out. And I said something, and I said, "Did you ever have surgery that you never told me about behind your ear?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's really strange." And I remember we went and got a camera so that we could take a picture on a camera to show him. And the friend that was over, I made him come over and look. And he's like, "Yeah, that kind of looks like a surgical scar to me." So it goes back to I don't know if they were coming for me or if they were coming for him, and I just happened to wake. I don't know.
Well, speaking of the movie Dark Skies, right? That was a big part of that. The husband had that.
Yeah.
Again, not to turn things into, always
No,
referencing
absolutely.
movies,
I'm
but
always looking.
Yeah,
I reference all kinds of movies.
Yeah, it's probably
kind of clue.
Yeah, it's probably a terrible habit. But the reason they write things that, I mean, you could almost call it a mockumentary in some ways, because the fact that they did pull from a lot of actual reports. But anyway, I already said that. So you just mentioned this, and I'm not going to, say any more than this. And it's up to you how much you want to cover on this, because I sent you, or I mentioned the link for episode 85, An Unfounded Call. And that was the ex-deputy sheriff that his inception with all of his strange stuff was not a UFO. It was actually a shadow person in an abandoned house. But then he eventually had essentially quote unquote Men in Black experiences. He saw UFOs. He had strange stuff inside of his house, and he ended up having serious medical issues, including dizziness, blackouts, and hearing loss. And not only did you say to me that you do have some hearing loss, but you have major health issues. And I don't know how much you want to get into that. That is totally up to you. If you're looking for really common threads, it's up to you. But I wanted you to listen to that so that you could hear that, yes, there are other people going through this. But yeah, as much as you want to cover on that, then that's up to you, Heather.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really open about it anyways. But in 2003, I started having all kinds of like weird things happen in my body where I couldn't stay awake. At one point, I was afraid I had like narcolepsy or something. I was exhausted all the time. I had these migraines that were beyond a regular migraine that I've ever experienced. And I had migraines since I was a teenager, but not like this. And then I was having just kind of weird things that would happen, like my toes on my left foot would go numb every once in a while when I was driving. I fell down a lot. There was a big incident, the New Year's of 2000. I was in downtown Fort Worth watching the bringing in 2000 New Year's celebration, and I stepped off a curb and my right foot just buckled and I went down and I ended up in the emergency room, just can't walk. And so everybody for a long time, just even my employers would be like, "God, you're so clumsy." And I'm like, I am not a clumsy person. I was an athlete. I played soccer. I played several sports in high school. I even played a little bit in college. And I just, all of a sudden, it was like I was unbalanced, had horrible headaches. I'd have periods of numbness, and it never lasted very long until it was right before Thanksgiving. I was taking college courses and working full time for a major corporation. I had this horrible stabbing pain in my right eye, and I went to the eye doctor after a week or so because it wouldn't go away. I couldn't turn my couldn't look and down. It was just this stabbing pain that never went away. I went to the eye doctor. He says, well, everything looks fine, but this could be something like multiple sclerosis. And I thought, okay, that's great. I don't even really know what that is. And so he had ordered an MRI. Long story short, insurance said I'm too young to have anything wrong with me. I was like 29. And after a month, it went away. And I just thought, okay, well, I've overworked myself. I'm stressed, school, whatever. So fast forward to January of 2004. It was one of those long New Year's weekends. And I get up to go to work on Monday morning. And as I'm in the shower washing my hair, my thumb and my index finger on my left hand went completely numb, which was really weird. By the end of the day at work, I could not feel my left hand. I had a stabbing migraine, felt like an ice pick was in my left ear, and I had blood that would just gush out my nose for no reason. So something horribly was wrong. I probably should have gone to the ER. I didn't. I went to a doctor. He told me I was having a complicated migraine, and I'm saying that with air quotes if you could see me right now, which I thought was really weird because no one had ever used that term with me before. And the next day I woke up and I was paralyzed from the top of my head to my waist on my left side. And I had made the forethought, I guess, on that Monday, because now it's Wednesday, to make an appointment with a neurologist. I got into the neurologist. They thought I would have a stroke. They they ran all kinds of, the test of like touch my finger, touch your nose. I did it fine with my right hand, missed horribly with my left. I'm poking everywhere on my face. I'm like laughing and crying at the same time because that's not my nose. And I had an MRI and I was diagnosed with MS. And I've had a couple, those first 2 years were horrible. I went downhill really fast. I've had all kinds of like medical treatments for it. And even though I'm not as sick as I was back then, I have other issues now. So I'm still living with that. And it just made me, that was one of my questions when I reached out to you is, do other people have like other chronic health issues, other autoimmune issues? Because again, I had nothing until 2000. I mean, I stumbled a few times because I said like 2000, I fell. I think there was another instance around then that I fell, but nothing that was like crazy, and it never lasted. But no one, all the doctors acted like I was making it in my head for years. And so when I finally got that diagnosis, that was like the biggest relief of my life because I knew I wasn't crazy and I knew something was wrong. I knew my body. I knew something wasn't right. And so I don't know, maybe that's why I have so many questions about what happened to me before, because it's like I'm waiting for someone to diagnose what happened to me. Was that an abduction? Was that possible abduction? Were they coming for him? Like if I knew what that was, if someone could define it for me, maybe I wouldn't be thinking about it all the time. You know what I mean?
Well, and something that I wonder is, is it the chicken or the egg? And by that, I just mean, are they attracted to some people because of what's inside of them and because you have these health issues, or did they cause them?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. Maybe I always had that in my body and it was just, in the background somewhere until it came out. I don't know. It makes you question everything. And I'm sure you hear people's stories, you collect stories, you hear people that are looking for these answers. And I know I'll never know, but it just makes you look at everything, every detail. I'm a very detailed person. I look at details and it just makes you analyze everything to see if there's, is this because of this? Did this happen because of this? I don't know. And I've always been very sensitive. I know we've kind of touched on the paranormal stuff, but I've had weird paranormal things since, I don't know, I can remember. But I was always very kind of intuitive that way. I would know things were going to happen before they happened. I would have these dreams that would come in pictures, like flipping through cards. I would know someone's birthday randomly out of nowhere. I'd just be like, oh, your birthday is June 29th. And they would totally freak out. And I don't know how I would know. But as my disease has progressed over the years, I've noticed that isn't as often as it used to be. That has like totally kind of diminished each year. But I also have a horrible short-term memory now, so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Thank you, by the way, for sharing what you did about your personal struggles with your MS and everything. And I'm so very sorry that you're going through that. It sounds like you really take this stuff in stride, and I love that about you. So let's zip now to current times. This stuff has not gone away, and now it's kind of shifted or morphed into something else. If it's the same thing, right? Or unless, like I said, it's something that once you notice it, it notices you, and then everything is attracted to you. I don't know, but it could just be the same thing. Yeah. Like John Keel thinks everything is connected. It's all the same phenomenon, right? Yeah. But okay, so your house now in Dallas, you've got a ton of stuff going on. You've got, and you can break any of these down that I'm about to list, and I've got different points that I've written down that I definitely want to cover. But you've got things thrown, you've got noises at night, you have, as I said, the alarm system I mentioned in the movie Dark Skies. Their alarm system does weird stuff. It kept going off. You have that. Your alarm was talking to you one night. You have doors slamming. And I really want to break some of this down. You have the Nest video security system, and you have captured some pretty incredible video. And one in particular, actually, maybe we could just start here if you want. There is a video of your living room, and your dog is like looking around and it notices something, and it's walking towards where the camera is. And from the bottom right of the screen, you can see what looks like a very long, like it's very low to the ground, even lower than your dog. It looks like an animal, like something maybe with a tail. You can see the head a little bit, and it's like going towards the dog. And then it's like, oh crap, dog. And it shoots off to the left, and then it disappears at the bottom of where the camera is capturing. And I don't get very excited about a whole lot of EVPs or videos, but that one is extremely strange.
Yeah, that one is insane. And I mean, you would think this would be something that would totally go. I mean, it's that crazy. And yeah, we hadn't had the Nest cameras for very long when we got them, actually, because I have like an ADT alarm system, and they had like their crappy cameras. Sorry, ADT. And my husband put them in because he's gone. If I fall down the stairs, which has happened, he wants to be able to find me. And there was no sound on the security. So we installed these Nest cameras, and the first one is sitting on my fireplace mantle. And the area that you're talking about, there's a window there. There's no door. There's just a window there. It looks over my covered back porch. And that night, we woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we heard the alarm system say, "Warning, strong storm approaching. Warning, strong storm approaching." It has never done this before, or even now. Like, I've never had this happen before. So it woke up my husband. It woke up the dog. He comes down the stairs. My Vizsla, Jake, is walking toward the door to go out. You can still hear in the background the alarm going, "Warning, strong storm approaching." I got notified. I could hear my husband was on the stairs, and my phone blipped because there was a notification from Nest. And I thought, that's really weird, because I still hear him on the stairs. I thought Jake was still with him. I picked up the phone, and the way Nest works, it gives you a notification with like a 3-second flip. And I could see my dog, like you said, walking toward the side door, and I could see this translucent thing move. And I'm like, what is that? And so I clicked it. It takes me to the exact spot. I watched the clip, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, goosebumps. What is that? And so when my husband got back upstairs, I'm like, oh my God, look at that. And he's like, oh, it's just the dog. It erased something. And I'm like, well, there's a major problem with Nest cameras if it's erasing things. And I mean, it's all electronic. There's not a videotape in here with a VCR recording this imagery. And he's like, oh, it's probably just some kind of something. And he's trying to make excuses. But I contacted Nest, because I thought, if there's something wrong with the cameras, then I need to get another type of camera. And so I downloaded the video. I'm not very techy. Put it into iMovie on your phone, and I looped it, as you've seen. And I was trying to change the color of the clip and slow it down so you could see it, because it's so fast. But it's the weirdest looking thing. It almost looks like it has a cat head. I don't know. You can't really tell. It's completely translucent. And it starts to walk toward the dog. There's a coffee table to its left side, and it does a literal U-turn. There's a still shot of the thing bent in half like a U, and it goes the other direction and goes around the couch and disappears. And so I sent it to Nest and said, well, first I called them and said, you're going to think I'm a crazy person. I think I have ghosts. And they laughed, and she goes, oh, people call us all the time. They think they have ghosts. And then, we get the clip and it's just dust. And I'm like, well, this isn't dust. And she's like, well, let me see the clip. And she had me send it. And so I got emails and phone calls from like probably every executive at Nest. It was like the emails would say subject line, ghost dog, ? And ghostly image, ? And basically at the end of it, the emails were like, that's really weird. Yeah, we don't know what that is. But if it happens again, let us know. But our system doesn't do shadowing. It doesn't replace images. It doesn't erase solid objects in the room. So that's when stuff started getting weird, because I had noises, and the old cameras, I would see these orbs that I would see go through windows or around furniture. But this was at a different level. Whatever happened that night, and again, a storm's coming in. I don't know. It seems like that seems to energize some of the stuff going on in my house. But that was the night that we got like serious poltergeist activity. And it lasted, and I still have it. I mean, but there for a couple of years, it was all the time. Like bowls would move across the counter in front of friends. We have a big Christmas party before COVID every year. Things would, a knife came flying out of a block of cheese and landed at someone's foot. I mean, just weird stuff happens all the time. Crashes in the middle of the night where there's nothing on the video, but you hear some crash. I would download the video. I'd walk around the house for like an hour trying to figure out what fell. I'd finally find it. So it's just really weird. I mean, you've seen some of the videos. They're really weird.
Yeah, and a potato was essentially thrown at your husband, which you didn't even realize had happened, but he just kind of jokingly later on goes, oh, yeah, I wrote it down. His saying is, Heather has the house all haunted, and then he'll tell the potato story.
Yeah. Like I was out one night with my friend Stacy and my husband, and out of nowhere, he's like, oh, somebody threw a potato at me. And Stacy and I look at each other like, what are you talking about? Like he had a stroke or something. And I'm like, were you standing in the front yard and drove by and threw? I'm so confused. Like, who threw a potato? And he's like, no, like 2 or 3 days ago, I was making coffee in the morning. I walked by your baker's rack, and a potato got lobbed off the baker's rack at me. And I'm like, and so of course, what do? I go to the Nest camera. Thank God I paid to save it for 10 or 15 days. I find the clip, and you've seen it. It's in a basket, and it comes off the top in a arc about, 6 feet, maybe a little more, lands right behind his feet. And he's so nonchalant, like, oh, what just happened? And he looks around and he looks down and he's like, oh, weird potato. Kind of shrugs his shoulders. He walks over and puts it back up on his. And here's me like, oh,
I love the nonchalance about it too. It's so funny how it's just two different types of people, right? Like you and I would be like getting the REM pods out and all this other stuff, like trying to do whatever we could do to figure out what was going on. Before I forget, because I'll get in trouble if I don't ask this, because I brought up, people know how I feel about EVPs and a lot of videos too, because a lot of times, someone will show a video and you're going, well, that actually, it's not always a bug or it's not always dust, but a lot of times it is, right? So a lot of those are a little bit more nefarious. But the one that I mentioned on the onset, that is very strange. So if I don't mention this, I'm going to catch a lot of crap. Now, there's two different there's 3 options. The first one is, of course, no, Shannon, you're never sharing this anywhere. The second one is, I can share it completely publicly, or the third is I just share it with my patrons, and a lot of them are really into, especially the UFO subject. So if I don't ask that and air at least my question, I catch some crap for it. It is not any pressure on you at all, of course, but I had to ask it.
I would love to share it.
Like public?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, whatever you feel comfortable with, however you want to do it, I will leave it in your hands, because it is the craziest thing. Because
it is.
Fast forward, I think that was in 2015 or 16. Again, I don't remember. My memory is horrible when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I mean, fast forward to, I think it was 2018, I finally called investigators, and they came in my house. And like right before that, I had this really scary morning that I'm dead asleep upstairs. My husband's gone. Dogs are locked in the bedroom with me, and I hear what sounds like a brick go through my downstairs windows in that same area. And I have like 3 or 4 very heavy bases that have sat there since the day we moved in, I think, right behind that couch. Like you can see the corner of it. And that morning at 8:00 in the morning, something right there where you see that transparent animal thing go behind the couch, something knocked over one of those bases. And it is the loudest noise I've ever heard that wasn't caused by an actual human. It took me quite a while to figure out what the noise was. The dogs went nuts. We came downstairs. I thought maybe someone had tried to break in. I walked behind the couch, and the base wasn't flipped over right there. It is at the other end of the couch. Like it got hit like all the way down 6 feet, 7 feet to the other end of the couch. I mean, it's behind there. You can't see where it was at. Wasn't busted. Have no idea. So that was when I was like, okay, the saging didn't work. The sprays that are supposed to clear energy didn't work. Things started getting to where you could hear audible voices. Other people heard audible voices or what sounded like a man clearing his throat. And so that's when I called investigators, and they came in, and we had a very weird night. And I think my friend Stacy wasn't a real belief person until that evening. And now if she gets a chance, she will give you a ghost tour of my home.
This paranormal group came out, and you mentioned that they said you had 4 entities in the home.
Yeah. They said there was a little girl. There was a bilingual male who spoke Spanish. And there was a man that they thought was linked to the house, and possibly like his dog. They thought maybe a dog was buried in the backyard. We don't know for sure, because there used to be an old house here that was torn down, and our house was built by someone else in this location. So yeah, that was a very strange night, because nothing was, well, when they came in, we all heard right in my foyer at the bottom of my staircase, we heard this really evil laugh. All of us heard it. And it was really weird because it wasn't picked up on the cameras, because they hadn't even set up their camera, but I have a camera right there. And I went back to review it, and it wasn't there. It was really strange. And so after they did a walkthrough and set up all their things, my friend and I sat in the backyard watching my cameras and the iPad, and downloaded a ghost app that would basically just pop up words. And I didn't really know if it was going to work or not. I'd used it like, I think once or twice before that to see if it would work. And it was really weird because I could hear the investigators in my house saying, I don't know, like we're not really getting anything. They've got EVPs going. I can hear the Mel meters beeping. It's like it's not really doing anything. And the app said the word join. I mean, as soon as it said join, the ladies that were here investigating were kind of waving at me on the camera where you saw the weird, creepy animal, like, hey, come in here. And when I came in, I told them, like, hey, this just told me to join y'all twice. It just went off from like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night until 4 a.m. There was all kinds of weird stuff that happened. We were getting movements. We were getting touched. We had the house as dark as possible. I mean, I closed every shutter in this place. It was pitch black in here, and we just got some really weird activity. They've got weird shadows. They got weird, these orbs that were spinning in our game room that all of a sudden were in different directions and came together into one ball and then poof disappeared. It was very strange. We were using the dowsing rods. That seemed like we were having a total conversation with somebody about knocking over the vase in my living room. Like it was an accident. They were just playing because I think we were talking to a child spirit. I don't know. It freaked me out. What was really strange after all this happened, and even that evening when we got to the end of the night, all of a sudden it was like, it's done. And everybody was like, well, I guess it's over. And they all left. And then I'm here in this creepy house by myself for the rest of the evening with my dogs. I don't know, a couple weeks later, the girls wanted to come back and show me some of their activity. And over those 2 weeks, the house had been the most still it had been in years, like ever since we moved in. I didn't hear a noise. And I mean, I was having daily up until this point. And for 2 weeks, there was nothing. And the lady showed up. We sit down in the living room. They asked me how it's been going. And I'm like, well, it's kind of really weird because nothing's happened. So whatever y'all did seemed to have stopped it. And the one lady said, well, I think your poltergeist followed me home because all of a sudden everything that was happening at your house started happening at my house. And she's continued to tell us stories what had happened at her house for the last 2 weeks, where tarot cards of her roommate came flying off a bookshelf, and there was one of her roommates had put a plate in the sink, and then they turn around and the plate's on the floor, which I never had that happen because I think I would have moved. But she had some really crazy stories where she had to do like a cleanse in her house, and it freaked them out so bad that they were like, don't ever use that and you're probably stirring up stuff. And I'm like, I'm not using the app. I just turned it on to see if it said anything. I just thought, I'll follow along while you guys are investigating. So that was really creepy. And since then, there for a while, nothing really happened, probably for a year or two after that. And it just seems like there's been this kind of slow build up back up to where recently stuff's moving around again. We haven't gotten to the point where the electronics have turned on by themselves, but doors have slammed, armoire opened, things have fallen off the counter. My littlest dog, the youngest one, watched something walk by our bedroom doorway when I saw it out of my peripheral just last week. And his head popped up and he was looking right at the door. And I was like, well, he saw it too. So I know that wasn't just a figment of my imagination. At 6 o'clock in the evening, something walked by the door because the dog saw it and the hair stood up and he started kind of low grumbling. So we've had some stuff happen recently. So I'm hoping it's not going to go bonkers like it did several years back because it's really creepy when it happens.
Was that the 6 foot tall thing that you just mentioned?
Yeah.
And that was just walked past the bedroom door, and you saw it, and the dog saw it. Yeah.
And I thought maybe it was my husband walking by, maybe I missed him walking by to our game room, which is right there. And I thought maybe he went in the game room and walked back by, and I texted him and said, hey, where are you in the house? And he said, oh, I'm in my record room, which is in the front of the house. And I'm like, hey, did you just walk by the bedroom door? And he's like, oh, no, I've been in here reading. I'm like, okay, that's weird. Yeah.
Okay, a couple things. So the local paranormal group comes out and they mentioned 4 entities, which might have included a dog. Was it... did they know about this? Did they watch the video and then see the... Okay, so they did already know about that before they mentioned, okay, all right. And then the voices that you heard audibly sound like they do corroborate with the fact that they said there was a little girl and then a bilingual male. Did you hear Spanish or some other language being spoken?
Yes. We were using, I don't know all the terms for all the ghost equipment, but they were using the one that skips through the radio stations really fast. We were picking up, we live in Dallas. There are bilingual radio stations everywhere, but those things flip through so fast. You only get like blip, blip, blip. You don't get words or sentences. And we were in our theater room all sitting on the floor, pitch black in there. And one of the girls goes, "Ooh, weird. I just saw something move past your theater doors." And I'm like, okay, that's creepy. I got touched. I think my friend Stacy got touched. One of the other girls got touched. And we started hearing a bilingual male speaking in Spanish come through that device. And I'm almost positive, and maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I swear there was also some German, which is really weird because my husband and I had gone to France a couple years before. We got some sand from Normandy, which we probably shouldn't have done, and we brought it home, and it's sitting in a closet right outside of that room where we're getting touched, and we got bilingual Spanish mail, and I'm pretty sure we had a German too. It was really strange.
Well, see, now you got to go all the way back and put that stuff back. I'm just kidding.
I know, right?
Okay, so I think this is kind of important to mention. It's a good way to go fishing because there was recently and you know who you are. You reached out to me. I have not emailed you back. Actually, I forget if it was email or social media, but there was specifically a sound of popping when it came to one of my recent episodes as far as strange people coming, quote unquote, in and out of our realm. It's a whole thing. But there was a popping sound. You mentioned that there was a crinkly sound, like a water bottle being all crinkled up in your bathroom. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was really weird. That was a night I had talked to you a couple times on Instagram. I'm watching my weird movies. It's like 2:00 in the morning. And I kept hearing things move in my bathroom, which normally when there's activity, thankfully, it's never really been in my bathroom. But over the last month or so, even when my husband and I are watching TV in bed before he goes to sleep and the dogs go to sleep, we've heard movement. And I thought, that's really weird, to the point where I'm like, did you hear that? And he's like, I heard that. So that night, I'm hearing what sounded like he took a disposable water bottle and it was compressed and it's like unpopping it. And I'm like, there's no water bottle in that room. And then the window next to my side was not closed up all the way because it's just looking at the side of the house. And the light from the neighbors was coming through the window. And I had my earbuds in and I heard a popping noise. And it was my armoire has these round rings that are pulls. And it's really heavy duty piece of furniture. And you really have to pull on that to pop it. And it makes a popping noise when you do it. And I had heard those rings kind of moving around earlier in the month, like when my husband and I were both still awake. And all of a sudden I heard the popping noise, even with my earbuds in. And I saw in the light, the right-hand door just swing all the way open. And I mean, my house is, it moves probably back and forth at different times of the year, if it's dry or if it's wet, but not to the point where it's going to pop open and swing the armoire door open. And then I had already heard the water bottle popping noises in the bathroom. And then I heard a bunch of stuff fall on the ground in the bathroom. So I got up, closed the armoire door. I went into the bathroom and my toothpaste, my contact case, I think my whitening pen, and there was one other thing, I can't even remember what it was now, fell on the floor. I mean, these weren't sitting on the ledge, on the edge of my countertop. These are things that were to the back of my counter. So I'm not sure how all of a sudden the armoire pops open and things just fall off my bathroom counter. So that's been the most activity that close to me that I've actually witnessed firsthand. Usually it's on a camera downstairs or just out of view of the camera downstairs, but I don't have any cameras upstairs. So this was really weird. And then a couple days later, husband's at work and I hear a slam and the game room door as hard as you could slam a door, just slammed shut. I mean, the dogs and I all jumped. The youngest puppy, none of them barked because they're all used to weird things happening, I guess. But the youngest one ran up the stairs to go investigate. And I thought, well, maybe something, there's a baby gate up there blocking the hallway so he doesn't go into the front bedrooms. And I'm like, maybe that fell over. So I trying to justify what just happened in my brain. And so I got my water and I went back upstairs and sure enough, the game room door had slammed shut. And I mean, the windows were not open. Everything's closed up. I'm sure the air conditioning came on, but again, this was with some force, middle of the afternoon.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like you probably get a whole lot of sleep between being scared of the dark, which I don't blame you, plus actual physical things going on around you, all these different noises and slams and things flying. You don't get a lot of sleep.
No, and I sent you the videos too, where this hasn't happened since the investigators were here, but randomly out of nowhere, all these electronics in the house that I don't know how to use, like in my husband's theater room, he's got all these high-tech devices that are on all different remotes, it seems like, would just come on in the middle of the night, and he'd be on some business trip, and I would hear talking loudly, and I would get up to go, which is really creepy, to get up in the pitch and go out and look around your house. But I would hear it coming from the game room, theater room area. I'd go through the game room, I'd open up the doors, and everything is on in the theater. And this would be a room that he hadn't stepped foot into for a month. I don't know. I don't go in there by myself. First of all, I'm creeped out by what happened when the investigators were here. It gets really dark in there. There's no window. It's a huge room. I have to then figure out how to turn all this stuff off. It takes me forever because I don't know how to turn all of it on and what works what. So it's really annoying. Or like his stereo surround sound system in our game room, which is, we call it the game room, but there's no games in there. It's just the living room. His whole stereo surround sound system will just turn on, which means the direct TV turned on too, but the TV didn't. So it's just the sound coming through. And I sent you one of those videos. It's just me getting up going, oh no, your electronics turned on again. Now I have to turn it off. And I'm sending him these videos usually the next day going, see, this weird stuff happens when you're gone. So it's really strange.
Well, I know there's a lot of people out there that can identify with what you've gone through. And there are, I mean, just like what happened with us during Night Visitors. I know that Katie has told her story, but Watson never had. And, you know, you're in Watson's camp. There's not a whole lot of people that know all the details of all of your experiences. And that's why I wanted you to like tell the crinkly sound, which, you know, that might be the exact same sound, the popping sound that I was talking with my guest about, and which actually somebody reached out recently, like I said, online or an email. I did get that to whoever you are, and I'll try to find that actually when I get off of the call to return that correspondence. But there's just these little tiny nuances that come out in these stories that I do like to throw out there, because those are the things that will really get the hooks in somebody like, oh my God, that's me. I had that happen to me. And maybe then they'll reach out. I mean, like you did, right? That's kind of what prodded you to get in touch with me. But I'm really sorry you're going through all that stuff. And I hope that us talking about this doesn't also get things ramped up, which it can. But again, to everybody, look at the different experiences that really, if you go off of, I don't know what we'd call it, the cut and dry paranormal. I don't know how to label this, but if you go off just 101, they'd go, well, Heather saw UFOs and now she's got ghost stuff. She's got poltergeist stuff. And she has health stuff. Also, you know, there's all these different things that they kind of seem like they should be separate, but are they? So anybody out there that's thinking of getting in touch, or if anything about Heather's encounters today have, you know, really touched you and you've gone, oh my God, I have that going on, please reach out. Even if it's just in private to Heather and I, we would like to hear it. I know Heather sure as heck fire would. So please reach out. It does not have to be to come on the show, but I really appreciate the fact that you are willing to do that, Heather. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate it. And thank you for sharing my story. There's one little anecdote and one little PS I wanted to add at the end. So with all my health issues, like I said, we kind of touched on it. Like I lose hearing in my ears. I can hear out of my right ear very good. With all these weird little, you know, misfires of this MS thing that happened a couple years back. And I think this is kind of important because I know I didn't experience sleep paralysis, because I experienced, as a grown woman, sleep paralysis for the first time when one of my medications was changed. They gave me a different muscle relaxant to take at bedtime. And it happened like 3, maybe possibly 4 times where I had that sleep paralysis thing start, which the only analogy I can make, if you've ever had this happen, it feels like you're kind of in that state of waking up from anesthesia, where your brain's kind of awake, but you can tell your body is not and you can't move. Totally different experience. I didn't hallucinate sounds. I didn't see creatures in my room. I didn't see a light. I didn't see all the things that I saw in 1997. So I have the direct, that thing happened in 1997. And now as an adult person with an illness, I have experienced like sleep paralysis, what I would consider to be sleep paralysis, and totally different experience. Totally different. So everybody that always goes, oh, well, that's just sleep paralysis. No, it's not. Totally different experience. I was totally wide awake. As soon as I could move in 1997, I moved and I heard voices. I saw things. And when I've had it here, I was kind of coming out of an anesthesia. So totally different, 2 separate things, not related whatsoever.
No, I appreciate you pointing that out, because I've never experienced that, thank goodness, knock on wood. But
it's not fun.
That does seem like a blanket statement. Just like me saying earlier, I'm very careful to say, even though I don't normally like videos and EVPs, there are some out there that seem legit and that get me a little bit amped up for it. It's the same thing with sleep paralysis. You cannot put, and no pun intended, you cannot put a blanket statement over all sleep paralysis incidents. So no, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of important since I've experienced that. Totally different.
Well, Heather, we will definitely be in touch from now on. And if I get any correspondence, whether I do or not, we're going to keep in touch. And I want to hear what's going on with you and what's going on in your home.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, anything that I get, I'm going to forward that to you. In fact, I want to get your email address. We'll exchange that, on Instagram, and then that'll be easier to maybe send things back and forth. Instagram's a little wonky sometimes, but a huge thank you for being willing to do this.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, told these stories publicly. And so I'm getting a little misty eye. I can't believe it. It's just nice to be able to talk to someone that I'm not trying to oh my God, you're going to think I'm crazy the whole time. This really happened. Oh my God, you're going to think I'm crazy. You know what I mean? It's nice to be able to talk to someone that's heard these stories and can relate to the stories, even if you haven't experienced personally yourself, or the people that we are reaching by this, that there's someone out there just like me who's this weird fear of nighttime. Are they coming back? I don't know.
Well, I can tell you right now, you're definitely not crazy. You're just part of the cool club, like the rest of us, that you're just yeah, I have some freaky stuff go on, and we fly that flag really high. That's all.
Totally. I'm cool with that.
Well, thank you so much, Heather. I'm going to let you go because your ear is probably going to fall off. And might I say before we sign off here that I had Heather, you can hear, and I realized that some of the words did get cut off. I pushed through for a reason because this is the best that it got, right, Heather? So I had her change through
best it's got.
Yeah, wireless AirPods, brand new wired, the earbuds, the not headphones. Anyway, the earbuds, the wired ones, and I even had her reset her network settings, which I recommend everybody do. But even then, it got a little bit better, but it just started to deteriorate more as it went on, and I realized that. But you know what? It needed to be told, and poor Heather was holding her phone to her ear for 2 hours now, which it probably wants to fall off, and it's going to be very sore. So thank you so much for doing that, Heather.
Oh, you're welcome. And my lights didn't flash. Sometimes when I tell creepy stories, the lights dim, which I'm sitting on my front porch and they didn't dim this time.
Well,
maybe that's...
Yeah. Hopefully all of the power was trying to go to the phone and hang in for for the stories encounters. Hang in there, phone. Come on, you can do this. But no, thank you a bunch, and we will be in touch.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Bye-bye.